The episode begins with Ma Dong and Mai Ran finally being okay with their dating. They acknowledge the fact that they both love each other and decide to date for real. However, they decide to take it slow and promise to take extra efforts to make sure no one at their workplace. They know the stuff going on with Professor H. Wang, and so they want to take it slow. The next day, Ma Dong goes to Chafe Na and tells her that the one who is currently posing as Lee Seok-do is not actually a real one and is the evil twin brother of Lee. Apparently, Lee Seok-do and Park, his wife, have already died. He asks them to run this news everywhere to bring justice and the truth about the situation to light. He also tells her that Professor H. Wang was alive, and he was the one who freed him and Mai from the cryogenics. At the same time, the pretender Lee Seok calls the chairman of the TV station for a meeting intending to talk about the news about Park running around in the media. He calls the president to a secluded private restaurant and pretty much forces to stop with all the news about his wife. The president argues that his team should at least get to cover the entire story before letting it go, but Lee is adamant that he wants the news gone and no longer reported. He warns the chairman that his political standing would go down in his party if he didn't listen because, after all, Lee was the one funding the party and also bribing all the party members. The chairman has no other option and calls Chief Na Ha-young to inform her that the story will no longer be covered. Back in the office, Ma Dong and Mai Ran are doing quite well keeping their relationship a secret, but it's pretty difficult for Ma Dong. With the new intern Jae-hoon coming into the office, he gets a lot jealous. He knows that Jae-hoon also has some feelings for Mai Ran and wants to keep him away from her. When no one is around, he asks Jae-hoon to be very respectful and to stay away from seniors, especially female seniors and especially Mai Ran. So he tells the boy that with this he can have a better chance of succeeding at the company. However, Jae-hoon makes a shocking move and tells him that he came to learn from Ma Dong and that he admires the man. It was his work at the university that inspired him to join the company. Ma Dong is baffled and just doesn't know what to say. He just goes away, and while he is away, Jae-hoon continues to flirt and talk with Mai Ran. That day, Ma Dong's brother, who is much older than him, and yet his younger brother, Dong Sik, arrives at the office looking for Ma Dong. He takes his older brother outside and informs him that his sister had run away again, this time with yet another dude, and had taken all the money they had. The two brothers rush to find their sister and see that she is hiding in the apartment with a random dude named Chu Bang Nam. The guy doesn't really look from South Korea, although he claims to be born here. The man is also involved in selling goods illegally and has no intention of marrying Dong Ju. He simply wants to keep her as a friend with benefit. After hearing this, Ma Dong gets furious and almost beats the guy up, but Dong Sik calms him down and they somehow manage to take his sister back to their home. Elsewhere, back in the office, Mai Ran is with H. Wang Byung-sim, Jae-hoon's father, telling him about the upcoming shoot. H. Wang Byung makes the situation awkward by confessing his love to her, but she rejects it yet again. Just because they were lovers before doesn't mean that she has feelings for him still. She reminds him that he had other things to worry about since his son had taken up an internship in the same office. H. Wang Byung is confused and walks outside to see that his son was in the office as well. He goes out to talk with Jae-hoon, and the boy asks him if it was true that he loved Mai Ran. H. Wang explains that he did, and since she was his first ever girlfriend back then, he has a special bond with her. This pisses Jae-hoon off and he goes away claiming that he loves Mai Ran as well. When Ma Dong gets back to the office, he finds a note left by Mai Ran asking him out on their very first date to an ice skating place. He reaches there and finds that Mai Ran was with her autistic brother Nam. The three of them have a great time together, and Ma Dong and Mai Ran especially enjoy each other's private company for the very first time. Finally, when Ma Dong returns home, he sits down with Dong Ju to talk some sense into her. The girl was apparently pissed that her brothers never paid any attention to her, and that she was a burden to them. She tells them that they don't care about her and they never did. Ma Dong replies that he cares for her and loves her and apologizes that he missed 20 years of her life. However, just like how he would cut off friends who tried to hit on her 20 years ago, he would still do the same stuff for her now as well. He reminds her that she is very special to him, and that finally gets Dong Ju back, and she decides to let go of her foolish stubbornness. Ma Dong has finally started to become part of his family's life, and so the next day he takes Dong Sik with him to the shoot of his new show. He knows that Sik has been pretty depressed for some while, and he decides to give his brother a chance at a vacation. Elsewhere, President Imposter Lee meets up with Chief Na to demand where the actual bodies of the real Lee Seok was. Na tells him that she knew that he was a fake and was actually Lee's twin brother. She threatens that she would report it soon via the channel regardless of what the chairman says. However, if he did what she asked him to, she would give him the location of Professor H. Wang, who knew where Lee was. The fake Lee agrees to help her, and she demands that she wants Ma Dong in exchange for the information. After getting the info, the fake Lee barges into the lab where Professor H. Wang is and points a gun to his face while he searches for his twin brother. However, he soon realizes that the spots where his brother's body should have been is actually empty. Angrily, the man puts a gun to Professor H. Wang's head and demands to know where the man is, but H. Wang has no intention to tell him. Instead, he picks up a call from Professor Joe Kai Bam and tells him that he leaves the rest on Joe's soldiers and delivers a cryptic message M3-4 before the phone cuts. Elsewhere, Ma Dong is on his way back to the office talking with Mai Ran when he suddenly feels really uneasy and starts getting an attack. He checks his temperature monitor, and the temperature is still 31.5 degrees, and yet he is suffering. Soon, Ma Dong collapses on the floor. Back in the lab, Professor Joe Kai discovers that there is a variation in the app given to Ma Dong and Mai Ran. Ma Dong is quickly taken to the hospital, and the doctors don't know what they can do to help him. They just ask him if they can call a guardian for him, but he asks them to call Professor Joe instead. By the time Mai Ran arrives at the hospital, she finds out that Professor Joe is there, and that Ma Dong has somewhat recovered. She asks the professor what it was, and he tells them that their app had a variation, and this would soon happen to her as well. Just then, Ma Dong notices some strange bruises on Mai Ran's hand. The symptoms have started in her body as well, and will take full effect within the next 2 days. She and Ma Dong need to rest while he tries to figure out a solution, since only Professor H. Wang knew about the cure, but he is missing at the moment, so for the time being he is their only hope. He gives them a temporary antidote and a 48-hour ultimatum before he leaves and meets Chief Na right outside. He was in love with Ma Dong, as we all know, but when she saw Mai Ran in the room, she had decided to stay outside. She strikes up a conversation with the professor, and at first, asks if Ma Dong would be alright. When she hears that only Professor H. Wang can heal them, she is taken aback. So she plots to make the fake Lee's plans succeed faster. She asks if Joe knows where the original Lee was. Joe becomes wary of her intentions and doesn't tell her anything. The next day, despite their worsening conditions, both Ma Dong and Mai Ran arrive at the office and are very angry at each other for being there. Mai Ran has taken this whole thing very badly on herself, and has even started writing a self-memoir. She believes that she is very unlucky, as she has only recently found her first love, and she fears that this will also be her last. She still has so much to do, and she is dying yet again. Ma Dong tries to assure her that they will be fine and that he will take her to Africa one day, and they will both be free, and yet he fears that his words might be in vain. The fake Lee is troubled by the fact that he cannot find his real version and calls Chief Na to his office. He tells her that he has Professor H. Wang in his captivity, and that if she wants to save Ma Dong, she needs to hurry up and find where the real Lee was located. Turns out the real Lee Seok is alive, and currently, Professor Joe and Ma Dong are looking after him. That night, Joe informs Lee that Chief Na was asking him about Lee, and he assures Ma that he didn't tell her anything. So the next day, Ma not only confronts Chief Na, but also the chairman about the things going on. The chairman just outright ignores all of it, and is confused as to what the hell Ma Dong is talking about while Chief Na is hurt. She goes to meet him again in his office and finds out that in order to survive they need to find Professor H. Wang. She refuses to help him, to make him suffer the feeling like she has, to lose the one that he loves. Regardless of everything though, she loves Ma Dong and decides to threaten the fake Lee to send back Professor H. Wang. However, the Sly Man had already recorded their last conversation, and was planning to use that just in case she did something foolish like this. Chief Na cannot do anything to stop Lee. Having no option but to help Lee now, she tells him that only Professor Joe knows the location of Lee Seok. Mai Ran is with Professor Joe in his lab as he researches for the cure based on the one clue that Professor H. Wang had given. As Mai Ran is looking at the booklet notes of the professor, she stumbles upon a page with the column Mado Magic. This turns out to be the cure M3-4, and Professor Joe begins preparing the cure immediately. Filled with guilt, Chief Na also calls Ma and informs him that Professor Joe is unsafe and that Lee's men will be after him soon. So Ma Dong quickly calls his guys to help the professor out, and they reach just in time to scare off the assassin. The next day, both Ma Dong and Mai Ran get the new medicine, and finally they are rid of this new variation, and can go back to what they call normal. In the office as well, Ma Dong had managed to hack the system, and corrupts the file of their new show, and on the show's launch, the video actually stops midway through the beginning song, and instead plays the investigation case of the murder of Park, Lee's wife, and also shows Lee well and alive, telling the world what had happened. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and hit that like button to help our channel grow. Turn on the notifications so you won't miss any of our new videos.